Hey, frenemies, this week's podcast is our reaction episode to a crazy Week 12 in fantasy. Welcome back, frenemies, to episode 96. I'm your host, Chris, and right across me to my right is the commish, Sean.
How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, man. You ready to talk some crazy fantasy football?
Yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're at Crazy Fantasy Football level 5.
Yeah, so most of this episode is going to be our fantasy reaction to Week 12. There were so many things to talk about, and let's talk about the craziest thing that probably started the whole craziness. I'm going to say that word way too many times on the podcast, but what the heck is going on with the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game? We're recording on a Tuesday evening,
Yep.
So this will be out before the game's even played.
I mean, if you're watching this and you're a football fan, you know now that this continues to get pushed back. It's kind of the consensus that the league should have just made them forfeit at this point. I feel like the Ravens, with the continued positive tests, it seems kind of like a double standard what's going on with the Broncos. I guess it's the same thing. They're going to make them play the game regardless. So I don't know. What do you think this means? The future is more. We're almost past this one, but
yeah. So the immediate here is really mind-boggling to me as a football coach, right? If I have that many holes, so if you didn't know, I coach high school football, but if I have that many guys have to plug in, for it seems a lot of their defense, their normal starters. Yes, they're pros. They strap it up and go, but they've been almost a whole week without practice. That's some continuity on the defense. Yes, they might know their assignments, but there's little nuances when you do that. They do get the running backs back. Are we expecting Lamar to play tomorrow?
He won't. He will not be.
He's not going to be.
He tested positive for COVID, so he'll be out. He's potentially going to miss the next week as well.
But J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram come back, so that helps a little bit in fantasy. But guess what? By this time, you already made those subs in your lineup. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. They're sitting on the bench.
I mean, there's not much fantasy advice we can give for you right now at this point. If you were locked into playing those guys, you're going to have to play them. It's just kind of unfortunate that it seems like there was a better way to handle this.
And it affects the games in Week 13 for both these teams. So the Washington and Pittsburgh game is going to go to a Monday night doubleheader.
Yep.
I forgot which time slot, but they're going to be playing on Monday night, probably the earlier time. And then we have the Cowboys and Ravens playing on Tuesday. So we get we missed on Tuesday football. Yes. We're going to get some Tuesday football next week, and we got Wednesday football.
And we get a Friday football game.
We're going to hit every single day of the week right now. That's where the NFL's going, just so they can avoid that Week 18 that they don't want to bring into play yet. So
let's make it a little lighter hearted here. Let's move on to Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great, man. I ate a little too much. Watched both games. Yours, you spent it with both families, right?
Yeah, I have. So my wife's family and my family both live in this area, so we have a double up Thanksgiving. So I don't. Most people have the leftovers later on in the night. I just have 2 straight dinner Thanksgiving. So
awesome. Well, let's talk about the games that we did watch. And for a little bit, we thought, they're going to be gross games.
They were gross. There's some fantasy value.
There was some fantasy value. That's what I'll say. It was kind of gross, but there was a lot of fantasy value there if you had them rostered. Let's talk about the Texans and Lions game. Usually that first one up there. Not much on the Lions side except for Adrian Peterson coming in the clutch. Made me look smart as I was tweeting about it and putting it on our
shout out to Daniel for that
stuff. Yeah, Daniel telling me, "Hey, Chris, are you gonna start AP, who is on my bench?" And I was like, "Oh, why not?" After I saw the Swift things go down, so then I went on our social media stuff saying, "Hey guys, if you got AP, it might be a great day to play him." Yeah. He comes in with 2 touchdowns and over 50 yards on the ground, but that's double digits from a bench guy. So if you plugged him in for a Dobbins, or if you're a Swift owner and had a handcuff, that was pretty cool.
Yep.
What about the Texans side? There are 2 players. We're going to talk one more here later on, but
yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson is just going beast mode lately. Mm-hmm. You do have to worry about his upcoming schedule, and then I'm going to jump it in the notes here, but Will Fuller out for the rest of the season.
6 games, yeah.
Includes a game next year, actually. Sucks for your fantasy team if that's who you were relying on. I didn't realize this, but I heard that he was wide receiver 4 at this point in the season, which is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I want to say he ended up being obviously wide receiver 2 this week.
But on the season, I mean, just crazy that he's been able to. Well, maybe that's why he's been able to stay healthy. That's all that crossed my mind.
Well, the PEDs, all right, so you look at this, we're not thinking of like super strength, all right? Not
Yeah.
always just thinking old school steroids in the weight room. You're looking when it comes to professional athletes, and shout out to, I know he probably won't listen, but Mike Golick, right? He talked about on his radio shows years and years, he said he used it while he was playing in his days in the early 90s for recovery,
yeah.
right? And that's what's Will Fuller's
that's-
biggest issue. Always being healthy, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see that a lot. That's why you see older guys
Mm-hmm.
having this. You know, the bodies don't heal as well. You know, we're old men now, considered in NFL
Yeah.
ages, so we know how it is. You just don't heal up as quickly as you used to, and those are agents that can help you do that quickly.
Yeah, and it's on the professional athletes to know what they're putting in their bodies. Some
Yep.
guys will come out and say, "I didn't know." It's on you. That's
He didn't
your life,
deny it
you
at
know.
all. He
Yeah.
went straight to social media and owned up for it. So there's not going to be an appeal. Then that means he probably knew that he was doing it.
But for him, who was often injured, he was just ready to go. You look in probably contract years coming up.
Yep.
Trying to put up big numbers. So he was gambling on himself there. And then the second game, call it a game, the Washington football team against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, some disappointment in this game.
If you were a Cowboy owner in fantasy.
Yeah, well, Mark Cooper had an all right game.
Yeah.
It was really the Zeke owners that I know they've already been beaten down this season by what the Cowboys' offense has become. But again, you thought Andy Dalton coming back was putting it back on track, but a terrible game. I think more the takeaway for me is that Washington front is legit. Like with Chase Young there now and the players that they have up front. You got to look at that on the schedule and actually consider that they're a good defense.
Yeah, their defense in fantasy range from 13 to 17 points, basically, whatever your scoring format is. So they played really well. And then Antonio Gibson, three touchdowns.
That's the big one is, he's going to be the guy that's going to win a lot of people some fantasy championships, I think. I mean, this is what we wanted when people were drafting him in that. I mean, people were drafting him up into the 4th, 5th round once we found out that what's his name? I'm going to blank now on the guy that's always hurt. Oh, come on. What's his name?
Who are we talking
Redskins running back that got arrested.
about? Oh, Darius Guice.
There you go. Thank you.
I
Thank
was
you.
like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So since then, people drafted him at that high point, and this is really what you were hoping for. He's now starting to get some of those targets, and he's a fantastic pass catcher. So I just, this will continue.
Yeah. So, yeah. It was an ugly game outside of those fantasy owners for those guys. But let's talk about another ugly situation. The Broncos had no quarterback, Sean. All three guys, whatever. I can't.
It was not. I've never felt so bad watching a football game. Like I legit just wanted them to have one drive of success, to just be like, you know what, we put together an NFL looking drive. I mean, they were just put in an impossible situation. I feel bad for the guy. He'll be able to tell his grandchildren, someday that he started an NFL game, but the story won't end very well.
Well, so we live in this COVID world right now. Hopefully not for long. But usually what happens is the NFL teams, last second, would sign a quarterback off the street.
They can't do that.
Can't do that because everyone has to go through protocols.
Yeah, there's a
as
certain
they come through
waiting
for
day
COVID
period.
stuff.
So
Yeah, so to put a guy in your practice squad who played like a year or two at Wake Forest as a quarterback, Stenton was his name. Poor kid. I mean, he balled out. Respect to him for going out there. He probably had no idea what the offense was being called. So that was so weird.
I felt like I was watching like college football for sure because it was Taysom Hill on the other side, so there was just no passing going on the whole game.
He was 1 for 9.
Yeah, to Noah Fant. So one person got a catch.
One person there. All right, Tyreek Hill, who had plenty of catches and plenty of fantasy points.
Yes.
You, as a personal owner of him,
Yep.
how do you feel about him?
All I do is win, no matter
He is the reason that I am going to continue to win, hopefully. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you besides, he's got this upside. This is when you're Patrick Mahomes, one of his top options, you can have a week like this. It's one of it's to me, he's a scary player just because of the injury concern, but if he's healthy, there's not much better in football than you can get than Tyreek Hill. He was uncoverable in that game.
It's Tony Romo was hilarious to listen to that game because he breaks it down on the player wise. He was so frustrated with Tampa Bay saying, "Why do you have a single high safety with
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill out in the game. Like, no, your DB's not going to stay with him. You need help. But he basically got almost all those things first half. Patrick Mahomes had a great day as well because of that. But another great day, Derrick Henry, he didn't even try hard in this game. He didn't play for most of the game, but he goes off for what, 30-something points? Yeah. And
At halftime, he had 30 points.
then he just stopped.
The guy in our league, Daniel, he posted in our chat and said, "Please, can someone please tell Derrick Henry to stop because he's playing against him?" And it was a massacre. It sucked. If you had to play against him, this is what we talked about. It's a foreshadowing of what's going to happen, I think, in the playoffs. He's got a juicy schedule coming up. This actually wasn't a great matchup. It seemed.
No, it was a good Colts defense.
DeForest Buckner being out was a big.
That's right. He was out of the game.
That was a big piece missing, I think. But again, this will just continue. This is what the Titans would like to do. This is the offense they want to run.
Then you got A.J.
It
Brown
works.
getting only 4 catches,
Yep.
but getting over 100 yards with them, scoring 2 TDs.
Yeah.
Something like so. It's like run all day, and then you got this. It's their version of a DK Metcalf, just big, fast receiver on the outside. So let's talk about the Falcons defense.
Yeah.
Now
I'm a little confused.
So
Got whiplash from what's going on with this defense.
Yeah. So it's like one of the rules is like, okay, anyone playing the Jets, you start.
Yep.
And then you also look at quarterback or receivers like, oh, they're going against the Falcons. They're going to get a lot of volume.
Not if your name is Derek Carr.
Derek Carr did not get that memo.
I don't know what happened. Like, honestly, my analysis is I would throw this game out. Like, I don't.
okay.
I've seen a lot of the Raiders this year, and Derek Carr has looked good. Like, he's been thought of as a quarterback that, they might have drafted a quarterback. They're not sure if he's actually their franchise quarterback, but he's played up to, his ceiling so far this year. So I kind of throw that out. That being said, you have to not trust Derek Carr a little more as a streamer. That you be in the back of your mind.
It's like the Raiders all year.
Yeah,
Rise up to the big games and play down to the lesser games.
yeah. But then apparently the Falcons decided they were going to play higher than.
Than usual. And, they were missing Todd Gurley. They were missing Julio Jones.
Didn't
but
matter.
the defense just showed up.
Yeah.
Or, again, Derek Carr. So you would still, let's put that in. If you're looking at streaming, maybe a deep league or let's say Superflex league, Derek Carr, you see him on the waivers on the back of your bench. Would you put him back in as that second QB?
He's talking
In a
about
Superflex league?
Yeah. I think he's definitely still startable. Like I said, he's looked good at times this year. I think he'll go back and look at the film, see what happened.
But most fantasy owners, after seeing a -1 point whatever, is going to be just like, I'm going to go get Kirk Cousins instead.
Mm-hmm.
So let's throw that out. You see on the waiver wire, picking up a QB flying, Kirk Cousins. Derek Carr. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking at
I mean, there's going to be a lot of better options, but I think the Raiders will figure it out. My point is, I don't think that you should assume that the Raiders' offense is going to do this every week. And on the other side, I would not look to stream Atlanta specifically. Now, they play New Orleans this week, who hasn't been quite a high-powered offense, but they're putting up touchdowns. Whether it's he's not using the ball in the air as much as we'd like for Michael Thomas owners, that being Taysom Hill. But they're scoring points. So
Now, staying with the Raiders real quick, we have injury concern with Josh Jacobs. What should owners do with him? They're saying that he could return this week.
yeah, the latest report I heard, he said he's feeling pretty good and he thinks he's going to be able to go. They've been kind of monitoring his workload anyways. I think he's proved to us that he can't handle like the Derrick Henry 90% of all of the work.
Like 20-plus carries.
So
right.
Yeah, so I think we'll see other guys mixed in there. I don't think it changes much. If you need to pick up, is it Foreman or Booker?
Yeah, Booker.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Devontae Booker, pick him up, even if you're not the Jacobs owner, because we just don't know what'll happen. Maybe he tweaks it this week in practice. So
Okay. All right, I'm talking a couple of running backs here. Latavius Murray, not Alvin Kamara, goes off this week. I mean, Murray was like 11th in fantasy scoring overall. What should Alvin Kamara owners be mad, frustrated, or just straight confused?
I think you have the right to be frustrated, and I'm not sure it's going to get better. I think you're just going to have to take your lumps with Taysom Hill. I think you could speak to this more as a coach, but I think as scheme-wise, what the offense that they're running right now, the downhill running of Latavius Murray, fits better with that kind of option plays that are being used. Whereas Kamara is definitely that check down back. I mean, we saw this earlier in the year. He was, only getting maybe 40 to 50 yards on the ground, but then he ends up as running back 1 because he has 10 receptions for 100 yards or something like that.
Yeah, they'll try to game plan to get Alvin Kamara out in space, but like you said, with that option game, you have an inside-outside choice where Taysom Hill is taking the outside runs, and you got your dive option, your inside zone carry with Latavius Murray.
Yep.
So yes, it's gonna hurt. You need Breeze for Kamara to be the big-time player we're used to in fantasy.
But all that being said, he's still a running back 2 at least.
Oh, yeah.
He's in your lineup.
I'm not benching him. You're just hoping that the game plan with Taysom Hill will involve him at least a touchdown or two.
What do you think that means for Latavius Murray then? Do you think he's a startable piece in fantasy while Taysom Hill is quarterback?
He has a good floor.
Okay.
I want to say a high floor, but he's got a good floor. You probably get 7 to 10 fantasy points just because he's going to get some carries in there.
Yep.
And he'll be the touchdown vulture at the goal line. If Taysom's not going to keep it, Murray's that guy down there because they're going to scrunch it even more.
I think that's a good way to look at it. If you need a guy that's going to get you, that low floor, not a very high ceiling, Latavius Murray is kind of that flex you throw in there if you need to stabilize your team. But if you're looking for like the boost button that's going to give you, 3 touchdowns and 150 yards, it ain't going to be Latavius Murray.
All right, so I'm going to hit on these next 2 guys real quick. Do we trust David Montgomery's production and usage down the stretch here?
I do. I mean,
Okay.
I've kind of talked about.
I thought
him.
you were going the whole other way.
No, we mentioned him when we did the playoff schedules, and he's got a juicy one coming up. I don't know. I've kind of stuck by him a little bit. I feel like he is talented. That offensive line has been atrocious this year. They made a little bit of switching around what they were doing with it, and as we saw, he had some pretty good production. Without him in the lineup, you saw how bad their rushing game was. So I mean, he's going to be like, to me, he's a high end wide running back to a low end running back 1.
For some reason, the Bears are still could be playing for that 8th seed if it opens up, or even that 7th seed. Defense and running the ball, that's how the Bears are going to win.
Yeah, and I mean, Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles, I don't think it matters. To me, almost there is a slight bump when Mitchell's in there because he does have a threat to scramble and run.
Yeah, he extends drives.
They can even design run plays for him to where they'd have an option going, which helps Montgomery. If the defenders have to be honest with that. So
yeah.
Whereas you're not afraid if Nick Foles is going to hold on to the ball and run.
All right, so returning back from injury, Austin Eckler, he had 11 receptions. Like, it didn't miss a beat. He seemed to maybe a little bit slow.
Yeah, I mean,
he's babying the
I want to
injury.
use this time to apologize to the people out there. I had a comment on our start sits, and somebody asked me about starting Curtis Samuel or Austin Eckler, and I said, you got to go with the safe bet of Curtis Samuel, which I wasn't wrong. He was still a pretty good start this week, but Eckler apparently is, healthy enough to get a huge workload. I don't expect that to change. I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm firing him up the rest of the season.
Oh, rest of the season.
Yeah, he's back into that running back
because
one.
he's used in the pass game, and like we talked about 04 with Herbert's value, the Chargers can't hold a lead.
Yeah.
So they're going to be behind, and there's going to be plenty of volume. Last year in the fantasy reaction, because this is so weird. All right, tight ends.
Yeah.
There were 12 tight ends scoring double digits in most half-point PPR leagues.
It's kind of the opposite of what we had a couple weeks ago there.
Yeah, and as we're trying to shore up lineups for a playoff push, I want to say there's probably 4 to 6 of those guys who scored double digits this week available on waiver wires. I'm looking at let me see a couple of names. I'm going to throw them out to you. They're not a usual name, but if you're looking at a Richard Rodgers.
No, I mean that was a freak play. I don't.
All right, Trey Boo Boo. That's Trey Burton.
I mean, he's interesting in a deep league, but I think there's better options out there.
Logan Thomas.
He's probably the best name you've mentioned that I would actually consider picking up and starting.
Okay, Kyle Rudolph.
And then, yeah, I think you kind of went in order there. The Kyle Rudolph right now it depends on Thielen. If Thielen's back, he definitely takes a tick down. Smith, their tight end also.
Irv Smith.
If Irv Smith if he's back in, then his value disappears. But
yeah, and then there's
those last 2 guys I think are startable.
Yeah, 2 other names here. Mike Gesicki and Robert Tonyan might be available on your waiver wires because if their previous owners got mad about their lack of production, they also scored double digits.
I'm in on Tonyan. I think if he's out there, he's a top 10 guy that you can start every week now.
Tonyan or Gesicki?
Definitely Tunyon if Tua's back, which I would assume, since he was close this week, that he'll be back.
Okay.
And with Tua in there, you're not going to get as much production.
He scored 9 points. I just want to throw this name out. Tyler Eifert, okay?
Ghost of fantasy past.
Yes, he is back. It was really more of a touchdown reception. But let's go to our party question of the week.
Ian, would you like to go to a party in my pants?
No.
No, Brick.
All right, let's go.
All right, so staying within the theme of craziness, I just
Yes.
thought about asking, what was the craziest days of our lives? So, Sean, I'm going to start
Soap opera,
with you.
Days of Our Lives.
I know, Days of Our Lives. You know, I was going to say something funny there, but I couldn't think of anything. So, what's a crazy day? We ain't got to go like crazy personal, emotional to where we're going to bring down the mood
Yeah.
of this podcast. But, Sean, what's
It
the
seems
craziest
like such
day?
a deep question, but one that came to mind and is relevant to one of our 12 listeners, David Kalana. I had a crazy day on his wedding day. Now, most of you might think that meant I got, super drunk and, did something crazy, but no, it was the lead up to the wedding where he had his wedding in Ohio. We're in Virginia. And so we had traveled up to New York for a wedding. I can't remember who, one of my cousin's weddings. She got married. And then on that, I think it was the day after that was the crazy day where we drove from there to Pennsylvania to where we were staying, which is kind of on the edge of Ohio there. Then we traveled, when we got there that night, we got there midday, and then on the way there, we went to Niagara Falls, and then early that morning, still within the 24-hour period, we had to travel 3 hours to David's wedding, and then 3 hours back to Pennsylvania. So I drove probably 16 hours in that 24 hours, saw Niagara Falls, and went to a wedding. So
Wow.
it's quite the travel going on.
Extremely tired.
Yeah.
All of that.
I slept well.
Yes, you did. All right, my crazy day would be my first 24 hours at boot camp.
Yeah.
I'm a Navy vet, went in the Navy back in December 2009. And I just remember I was leaving. I had left the life in college, and I, really good, comfy life, loved it. But I felt like, hey, let me do something else to help me with my career. So I joined the military. I went into the Navy. And I remember just getting off the bus. I'm like, all right, here's a little hustle and bustle. It's fine. But it started off, the worst thing ever was we're in the hallways and you're boxing up stuff and they give you dog tags and they give you a little chain link, little necklace you have to wear. And you have to put those little ball things in the little hook and snap it in, right? My sweaty hands.
This is your
could
story
not-
of how terrible your first 24 hours was?
I could not get it in, right? Well, the whole time while you're doing this, they're trying to do the shock method here. So I had this, and I can say this because I'm half Filipino, had this little Filipino chief that's probably all of 5 foot tall, screaming at me, talking about how less of a man I am because I can't do an easy task. and every other little 4-letter word was coming out. And the funny thing is they're cursing you out, but there's a poster right behind there on the wall talking about cursing or use of profanity is a lack of leadership. And I was like, is this ironic or why is he still screaming at me? And I had 3 things come around. First off, I was getting very mad. And then I wanted to punch the guy. And then I almost cried because he was just ripping my face.
Is this how you felt?
Ron, where are you?
I'm in a glass case of emotion.
Oh, it was so much emotion. And then I'm sitting there, what the heck did I just do? What the heck did I just do? And, it's not Marine boot camp or Army, but Navy, they have some really crazy chiefs screaming at you. And then all the way up to the morning, you're standing in line, everything was fine. Then waking up that morning to someone screaming at you.
Yeah.
And, you're standing on the tow line trying to wake up, as they call it, tow line and attention. And the first thing came to my mind, it's like, why did I leave college?
Yeah.
I signed up to be yelled at for, at that time, 3 months. So that was a crazy 24 hours of just constant screaming and belittling. And I was fine. But I had went through that little case of emotion
Yeah.
plenty of times through the 24 hours. But, yeah, so that's our episode this week. You got anything for them, Kamish?
No, I think just stay tuned for the 757 podcast if you want to hear a little bit of banter back and forth. We're going to have some of the guys talk about their playoff options, if they think they're going to make it, what the state of the league is. Also, I think it'd be fun, Tim Cook, I'm calling you out.
Let's go, Tim.
If you just give us some of your fantasy situations you're dealing with, you guys hear about our league all the time. I think it'd be fun to hear some of the people that aren't in our league all 2 of you other listeners. What's going on in your league? Are you on the edge of the playoffs? You dominating? What's going on?
Yeah. So, man, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably already following us, but give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at FrenemiesFFPod, and stay tuned for more what we have.
All right, see you guys next week.
All right, deuces.